Hello, I'd like to greet you as you gather at your conference. And I don't know all of the things that have found their way onto your agenda, but I want to invite you to think about gathering not for the sake of a look back, but for the sake of a look forward. God calls his people forward. You're probably familiar with what's written in Isaiah chapter 43. God tells us now, forget the former things, don't dwell on them. Look, I'm doing a new thing. Do you perceive it? Do you see what I'm doing? And then he goes on to tell us that he's making streams in the desert and water flow in the wastelands. Often we read these scriptures, we know that our God is a God who makes things new, but we have a hard time imagining what new things really look like. Maybe there's never been a better time for us to really think well about the future than when we have been through a difficult recent season, right? These last few years of dealing with this global pandemic, the geopolitical changes that are taking place in our world, and even generational change in the way that it impacts us and our churches. All these things can combine to put us in a place to say, wow, we really do need the new thing that God can already see about what the future holds. My prayer for you as you gather together this week is that you'll be seeking the Lord of the new things that he wants to do. In your churches, I want you to think about the context of ministry. You know, the life of the Chinese church in the United States has changed over the decades. A church that rose up and was built out in ways that made sense while there was quite a bit of immigration flow into this land is one thing. But now, even as God moves people around the world, immigration flow is not the key story for your churches, but rather the generations that are being raised up in our own communities is probably where the future lies. These are days in which I believe the God who makes things new and makes streams in the desert is drawing our attention to the flow of fresh water that he wants to flow through our churches into the next generation and into the world that surrounds them. These are days when we might not want to be thinking about the structures and systems and programs of the past, but the way to love and walk with young people today, equipping them for what the future holds. That can mean a lot of change for us. That can mean that we're tempted to think of former things when what God is calling some of us who are graying to do is actually believe him for the new things we've not yet seen. But I love what I see in the Association of Chinese Churches in the CNMA of the U.S., that you're leaning forward. You're thinking about that next generation. You're thinking about the fact that succeeding generations will live differently and are interacting with those who need the gospel of Jesus Christ around them in different ways than we did. I want to encourage you to be bold, but I want to encourage your boldness not to be about an activism or about building more programs or this or that, but first and foremost, to be bold about seeking the Lord. In Isaiah 43, where I read from earlier, God says to his people, after he promises them, I'm doing a new thing, he says, yet you have not called on me. As the Lord leads us to a new day, as he leads us to new things, as he leads us in new contexts in this world, as we might discover that in our lifetime, we will see what it means to follow him, not from a position of strength, but maybe from a new position of weakness and of frailty. God can still use us. He says, first, you need to seek me. You need to call on me. So I'm speaking to you at your district conference when you've come together. And I want to encourage you to make this a conference where you begin to commit yourselves as a body to seeking the Lord who makes all things new. Let's go in boldness first to Him, trusting Him for what He can do through us. And then, make no mistake, He will show us what it looks like to go in the boldness of His Spirit into a new world where the gospel is needed by people that are not going to come to us, but who will be touched as God sends us to them. Would you make this a time when you seek the Lord, when you call on Him, because He promises that as you do, He will make fresh streams in the desert, water flowing even in the wastelands. He's done it before, and He can do it today through us as we seek Him. God bless you during this conference. Call on His name.